Anybody that was wondering how Chaz Lanier was going to bounce back, how he was going to respond from Saturday's disappointments, well, he got their answer in the first couple of seconds of Tuesday night's win over Mississippi State. Tennessee basketball wins big, sets up the showdown with Auburn coming up this weekend. All that and more at your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane, free and available wherever you get your podcast. That is Locked On Vols. Every single weekday morning when you get up, we'll have a bonus show later in the week, probably on Friday at some point, checking out Locked On Auburn. Zach Blackerby to get you set for Tennessee and Auburn because, boy, that's going to be a big-time showdown. Tennessee took care of business on Tuesday night over Mississippi State. A big win, a big first half, but a 68-56 win, setting up that showdown with Auburn coming up on the weekend. We'll recap and react to Tennessee's win over Mississippi State here in segment number 1. Mike Wilson of Knox News going to talk a little bit of Tennessee baseball. Opening day less than a month away, coming up in segment number 3. And then Josh Ward for Ward Wednesday, talking Tennessee football and a little bit of everything in segment number 3. This show is brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make a whole lot of money on the NFL playoffs. You can put $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started today. So it was really, really good to see the way Tennessee overall as a team bounce back. Of course, on the road, losing to an in-state rival, losing to a team in Vanderbilt that, you were just so much better than. But hey, that's basketball sometimes. Sometimes you don't bring your best stuff and you lose. And that's life in this league for you. But more than anything, even more than the loss, it was Chaz Lanier getting stuffed at the rim. Chaz Lanier, missing the front end of, the 1-and-1 there at the end of the game. And Chaz Lanier having a season-high 5 turnovers for Tennessee in that game against the Commodores. Not a very good game in those respects for Chaz Lanier, though he did break out of a shooting slump against the Commodores with 4 made three-pointers. Well, Chaz Lanier kept the scoring going. He had 5 made three-pointers against Mississippi State on Tuesday night, 4 in the first half. And how this game started, it was a Chaz Lanier 3, a Jahmai Mashack made field goal, a Chaz Lanier 3. Tennessee jumped out to an 8-0 run to begin this game. We're leading like 14-3. We're leading like 22-9. Tennessee just dominated, shooting 41% from the field in the first half. Tennessee dominated Mississippi State, doubling them up and then some, 34-16 at the end of one. That was really, really great to see. Now, Mississippi State came back and punched back. Boy, did they come back and punch back. They cut the deficit to within, I want to say, 7? I don't have it in front of me. I do apologize. I want to say they cut the deficit within 7 or 6 there, the opening couple of minutes of the second half. And then as the shot clock's going down, Z kicks it out to Felix Okpara, and he shoots and makes a three-pointer. Yes, Felix Okpara has more made three-pointers this season than Jonas Adu does at Arkansas. I saw that tweet out there. I just thought I'd pass it along. Obviously, Okpara is not a three-point shooter, but he drilled his three-point shot attempt in that respect, and it was huge as the shot clock was winding down. But nonetheless, he has 9 points. He had 12 rebounds in this game, and he continued to do what he did on the defensive end. You had Jahmai Mashack that had 10 points, 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. When you've got your role players doing that, sometimes you don't even need Chaz Lanier to score a game-high 23. Sometimes you don't even need Zakai Ziegler to go and do what he does. He didn't have the massive points game that Zakai Ziegler's had in years past or in games past, but he did finish with 9. He had 7 assists, which is really good. 2 rebounds as well. 10 points from Gainey off the bench, and I know a lot of people want to see Gainey kind of transition in the starting lineup, but I'll tell you what, I can't get enough of Gainey kind of coming off the bench and having that spark offensively. 3 of 7 from the field. Not his best night shooting, 0 for 3 from long range, but still found a way, was perfect at the line and had 10 points in this game. But again, 9 points from Okpara, 10 points from Mashack. Igor Milichik's only had 3 points in this game. He was 1 of 5 shooting, 1 of 4 from downtown. So Igor did not have a very good game. But again, when you're getting 23 from Chaz, but more importantly, when you're getting 10 from Jahmai, and you're getting 10 from Gainey, and you're getting 9 from Okpara, sometimes you don't need your big scorers to even have Herculean efforts, if you will. But Tennessee certainly did have that. Again, it was the greatest of great starts for Tennessee. 2 made three-pointers in the first couple of minutes of this game. for Tennessee, sandwiched around a Jahmai Mashack made field goal. Tennessee led by 18 at the break. Tennessee in this game shot 42% from the field, 36% from three, made 10 3-pointers, 10 of 28, which is really, really solid. Was solid at the charity stripe, 12 of 13, only missed one. Tennessee did commit 10 turnovers. Tennessee had 19 points off 11 turnovers from State in this one, so that was good to see. Tennessee won the rebounding battle, 36-31. Tennessee had 13 points off second chance opportunities. Let's see here. Tennessee and Mississippi State were tied at 18 all in the paint. Tennessee had 14 points in fast break, dominating Mississippi State in that regard, 14-4. Tennessee had 7 steals to 5 from Mississippi State. Tennessee had 15 assists. Again, 15 assists for Tennessee on 23 made field goals in this game. That's a really, really good stat right there. So, I liked what I saw from Tennessee for the most part. Jonathan Stone-Dubar, he did, play obviously more. He played a little bit in the second half. Let's see how many minutes he finished with. Still not a ton of minutes. He only played 7 minutes, but he did have a really, really bad sequence where he missed a shot. He fouled the three-point shooter there in the second half, and Barnes was kind of giving him a talking to when he went over there to the court side, which is expected. But overall, this is a game that Tennessee just dominated from the start, withstood a late rally in the second, or a rally to begin the second half, and Tennessee was able to weather that storm and looked really, really good doing it. So all this sets up a showdown with Auburn on Saturday on the Plains. College game day is going to be there. Tennessee versus Auburn, arguably the two best teams in the SEC. Auburn, of course, the number 1 ranked team in the country, second to Duke. At least that's what it was at one point in time. But nonetheless, 2 of the best teams in the country, 2 of the best teams in the SEC. It's a rivalry, basketball related in this conference, and I'm excited to see how Tennessee does. Tennessee kind of has a bit of a road issue, right? Tennessee's kind of struggled on the road a little bit at points and times this season. Lost by 30 on the road at Florida. Lost by 1 on a tough game against a team that doesn't have nearly as much talent as you do. In Vanderbilt a couple days ago. Kind of sounds like football, talking about struggles on the road in football. But nonetheless, Tennessee going to have to rise to the occasion. And if you can get that type of effort from Okpara on the offensive end as he continues to do what he does, shot blocking, still needs to be a better rebounder. I'm not really sure why Okpara doesn't rebound as well as he did. Thankfully, of course, he got into the double digits in that regard on Tuesday night with 12. That was phenomenal. Let's see that be a little bit more consistently for Okpara. But when you're getting that type of offensive production again for Jahmai Mashack and Felix Okpara, it's a pretty easy win for you, in the grand scheme of things. Great to see Chaz Lanier continue to respond the right way. Again, he had 4 made threes at Vanderbilt, 4 in the first half of this one, finished with 5, 8 of 17 from the field, a game-high 23 points, and Tennessee cruised to a 68-56 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and Tennessee now improves to 17-2 on the season and 4-2 in Southeastern Conference play. Back on the road at Auburn, coming up on Saturday. What time is that game? Is that at 3:30? Let's see here. That game will be at 8:30. Okay, so it's a night game. 8:30 Eastern time at Auburn. And, of course, we'll have you covered right here on Locked On Vols. We'll get you set with a crossover with Zach Blackerby on Locked On Auburn later in the week. Hey, when we come back, what about Tennessee baseball? Less than a month away from opening day. That is coming up next. As we continue our conversation, we'll talk with Mike Wilson of Knox News as we come back right here on a Wednesday. Locked On Vols. This message is brought to you by PrizePicks, the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. PrizePicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs or the regular season, PrizePicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all that football action. Now it's playoff time. There's no better way to get in on all that action than over at PrizePicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less of at least 2 players, no more than 6. And if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money by just making a few simple picks. For me, all about those hot takes. I love rushing stats. Look at Mahomes. Look at Josh Allen this weekend for the AFC Championship game. Allen's always a fun play in fantasy because he's an MVP candidate this year, so love to play those over-unders. But you have all that and more, plus all the guys in the NFL Conference Championship weekend over at PrizePicks. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 in lineup. Again, that's right, $50 just for playing Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, where you can run your game. Hey, I want to welcome on to the show Mike Wilson from Knox News. Going to talk a little Tennessee baseball. And Mike, man, we're less than a month away, a little over 3 weeks away from opening day. Tennessee baseball, of course, the reigning national champions. And you can already feel a lot of excitement amongst Tennessee fans. Football season's over. Basketball season's happening right now. But baseball season, that's something to celebrate here on Rocky Top.
It is, and it didn't always look like that when Tony Vitello was hired. But man, it is a thing. I mean, we're 26, 25 days out at this point from baseball season, and yeah, I mean the attention's there, the excitement's there. Teams going through picture days and all of those fun things. All American lists are coming out, so yeah, it's right about to be in the full swing.
So, of course, there's not a whole lot of rest time. Tennessee goes through a long, extended postseason, goes to Omaha, spends about 10, 11 days in Omaha, wins the championship. And then you've got transfer portal action. You've got guys going to the MLB draft and all that type of stuff. How would you evaluate kind of where this roster is right now in terms of where it was with so much talent and CMO, Billy Amick, Blake Burke, and so many others to kind of where it is now with the additions of, Liam Doyle, Andrew Fischer, and, Gavin Kilen?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Tennessee hit big needs in the portal, certainly. Tanner Franklin being that fourth guy, you bring a power arm in the bullpen, that's a nice piece. But I think where Tennessee fortified the best was in the recruiting class, the player development, and some of those JUCO guys that came in that class as well. Obviously Tennessee has some really important returners. When you talk about Hunter Ensley, Cannon Peebles, Dean Curley, but went out and got a third baseman again for the third straight year in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Went out and got a really important piece there. Went out and got probably the Friday night guy in Liam Doyle, and Gavin Kilen's probably the starting second baseman. So you might have the best infield in the SEC depending on what happens at first base there. But Tennessee, I thought, really did a good job solidifying that roster with some future stars, some ready to play right away recruits, and also that transfer portal as well, as they've done so well in the past few years.
You brought up first base, and you and I both were over there, several times in the fall and watching those scrimmages, and we'll be back over there. Well, I won't until it warms up, but we'll be back over there here soon to watch some preseason. Alex Perry had a hand in that first base job there in the fall. He's going to be stepping away, not with the team in the spring. Dalton Bargo, for me, always felt like he was going to be the guy. He was injured for much of fall camp. But Dalton Bargo kind of seems like the guy, but also Levi Clark and Stone Lawless can play first base. I mean, they've got a couple of options, but obviously – it's going to be a brand new starting first baseman. Blake Burke, there was a huge learning curve there for him in 2023. What are your thoughts on first base kind of entering the season?
Yeah, I mean, that at the start of fall was the spot where Tennessee just threw anyone that could hit. That and left field both kind of had that feel of, all right, this is a good bat. Can they play the position well enough to be in the lineup? And I think when you talk about Dalton Bargo, he's one of Tennessee's 9 best hitters. So it was always, where is he going to fit? Is he going to be the DH? Is he going to be left field? Is he a right field candidate if Reese Chapman struggles a little bit and goes to DH? Like, what do you do there? Or is he going to be the first baseman? And I think first base seemed like that likely spot because you want Jay Abernathy in the lineup and you probably are putting him in left. So Dalton Bargo at first always seemed like a possibility. But Alex Perry was so good in the fall. While Dalton Bargo was out, but he was so good. And there's a key component there. He's a right-handed bat. Tennessee once again leans very, very left-handed heavy. So having the potential of a right-handed bat there was nice. That's why I think you could still see Lawless and Clark get a look there from time to time because both of them are righties, balances out the lineup a little bit. But in some ways, Alex Perry's departure from the team sort of solidifies where you think guys are going to be. There was a little bit of a puzzle there with 4 guys for 3 spots with left, DH, first base. I think you kind of know who those guys are now. And you cleared that up a little bit. So in a way that helped Tennessee's roster puzzle. And it certainly helped you figure out what you're doing with Dalton Bargo because that's a guy you want in that lineup.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to start scrimmaging pretty much every day. Maybe later this week, depending on the weather. Maybe next week. They're back going through pictures like you mentioned, kind of getting those individual workouts in. Jay Abernathy, you brought him up. I mean, he's a guy in fall you and I both saw. I mean, he was incredible. I mean, he showed the arm, he showed the outfield glove, he showed hitting the top of the lineup. And this is a potentially maybe not day one, maybe day one. A leadoff guy. It feels like eventually he's going to be in that starting 9, maybe from day one. in years past, and you've covered the team a couple more years more than me, it feels like Tony, I don't want to say rewards veterans, but gives these veterans the first go of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wouldn't shock me if Colby Backus kind of gets that start in left field. But at the end of the day, Backus can DH. I mean, he's going to be a part of the fold. But Jay Abernathy, corner outfield, DH, whatever, he's going to play for Tennessee this year.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the left field position too. I mean, Logan Chambers, I think, was the opening day guy there a couple years ago. That is where Tony Vitello leans, is giving those guys the opportunity. And Colby Backus was the guy going into the fall in left field. Jay Abernathy's is different. Tennessee hasn't had a guy like that. They had Seth Stevenson, probably is the fastest guy that Tony's had here. Seth Stevenson also is right-handed. Jay Abernathy's left-handed. Mm-hmm. He's got that extra little step out of the box. Really good bunter. What surprised me in the fall was the pop in the bat. I mean, he's not just a slap guy. He's not just a get-on-base guy. He can hit. He's got some power in that bat. He also is a middle infielder by trade, but played a really good outfield during the preseason. Saw him in center field make a tremendous catch late in the fall. Yeah. So he's a guy who can hang defensively too. I'm with you. I think he's the guy there. Is he the guy on day one? I don't know. Your lineup is probably the most balanced and best with him in that spot. I mean, Tennessee hasn't had a traditional leadoff speed guy in a good minute now. I mean, Simo, obviously unbelievable.
He can do whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not a traditional leadoff hitter, more of a modern MLB leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
Jay Abernathy is what you expect. Speed, get on base, can do it all for you. It looks like a future star at Tennessee, and he might be a star right away.
Yeah, I'm intriguing to see kind of how, the weeks leading up to the season go for Tennessee. I mean, you know the plan at catcher. We talked about first base. Kilen can play short, but in fall he was at second. Dean Curley didn't come off short. It feels like your middle infield set. Third base is Fischer for now. Chapman's your right fielder until he gives you a reason not to. Hunter Inslee's your center fielder. You talked about left field there. I'm so intrigued to see how the staff evolves. Mm-hmm. A lot of new names. And again, we don't have the answers right now, but if Tennessee was starting the season tomorrow, I think Liam Doyle would pitch game 1. Game 2, is it a freshman and Tegan Coons? Will he pitch game 3? Who's that other starter? Is it bullpen? Is it piggyback? Is it a JUCO arm? There's a lot of talent. We just don't really know kind of how they're going to assemble early on. What do you make of the staff, kind of heading into these preseason practices?
Yeah, I thought leaving the fall, Liam Doyle, Tegan Coons, Brandon Arvidsson were probably my 3. Yeah. I really liked the different looks there. Doyle being a shorter guy, power lefty arm, Coons power righty arm, and then you come back on Sunday with a tall, lanky, funky delivery, Brandon Arvidsson. So I thought that was a really good balance of what you could have there. Nate Snead's probably the X factor of the pitching staff. What do you do with him? You saw him in Omaha pitch, long relief, quick relief. I really like him in that role. I could see, going back to that Tony loves veterans element, I could see him being a Saturday guy to open the year, see if he proves himself as a starter. I think Tennessee's overall staff could be best with Snead in the bullpen.
I agree.
But again, you might throw him in the rotation. He might be a safety blanket when you talk about the rotation. If Tegan Kuhn struggles a little bit, you put Nate Snead in there. I think those are probably 4 of those guys really high up in that mix. But Tennessee's staff's intriguing. That next tier has a lot of newcomers. There's a lot more power arms on this staff than Tennessee had last season. It's going to be a more traditional staff as well, I think. That back into the bullpen, you get a guy like Marcus Phillips in there, hard-throwing guy. Michael Sharman was a guy in the fall, a JUCO addition that was really good. I thought Nick Abraham might have impressed me more than anyone in the fall as a freshman from California. It was really, really good. Austin Breedlove, JUCO guy. Again, you could go on and on with the arms that Tennessee's added there. You throw Dylan Loy in that same mix, I think, with Nate Snead of he can start for you if you need him to, but he's probably a Kirby Connell type, can throw 2-inning relief stints in a weekend or something. So you got a lot of good pieces. You've got good starting options. I'm going to be interested to see how that falls together as well. In many ways, to me, it feels like the 2022 staff, which obviously became historic in terms of what it did in college and the guys that came out of it. But you went into that year not really knowing exactly what it was going to look like necessarily because you had a lot of new guys, and that's exactly where you're at right now, just in terms of new faces and new possibilities.
Yeah, and then, when can AJ Russell give you anything? What's his role? That's kind of another X factor. And, I mean, I would hold my breath. I mean, I could be wrong, but I would hold my breath that he's going to, jump into the weekend rotation, pitch on Saturday, give you 7 innings, right? I mean, pick your spots, stopper, opener, closer, and then let him kind of grow and evolve when he gets back out there. That could be another storyline to watch as the season goes along. So Ryan Combs.
Ryan Combs looks a lot like Aaron Combs.
Yeah.
When he plays the ball.
Combs, Thomas Crabtree. I'm naming some of those other JUCO arms because that's where I was going to go with the next question, but you already mentioned a lot of them. I am so intrigued to see that element of the staff kind of evolve and come together because Arvidsson was a huge get for Tennessee. He was a draft risk as well. A couple of these guys were. Tanner Wiggins was. I'm kind of with you there. And entering the season, if you have Nate Snead as that security blanket, that piggyback, because let's remember, he was Xander's piggyback for the first half of the season. I think that's a really, really good way to start the year. So I could see Tony doing that for sure.
Agreed. And the AJ Russell thing is interesting. Like I've kind of filed that in the back of my head as how they used Blade Tidwell in 2022, where Blade came back from that preseason injury, mid to late April-ish, right around there. So he came back, and by the postseason, he was starting because Tennessee did have Beam and Burns who were wearing.
They ran out of gas,
the season. So you had a guy that was ready to jump in. And that's such a sweet thing for Tennessee to have with a new staff of, okay, if the starting rotation isn't perfect, well, here comes a guy who maybe can be a starter for you come postseason. And that's AJ Russell, who was so good in the couple of starts he had while healthy last season. So, yeah, that's a nice, you're expecting maybe early SEC range if he comes back according to plan. That's a real injection of life into that staff. And again, that same phrase, it's a safety blanket. You kind of got a few of those, especially when AJ Russell comes back around.
Mike Wilson does a great job covering Tennessee basketball and Tennessee baseball here in a couple of weeks for Knox News. Give him a follow at by Mike Wilson on X. Mike, as always, man, thanks so much.
For sure. Glad to be on and can't wait to be freezing at Lindsey Nelson Stadium.
Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help that you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with licensed therapists who fit your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message a therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month of Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. Josh, Tennessee made an addition from the transfer portal over the weekend in former Duke tailback Star Thomas. Pretty interesting road to get to Rocky Top, but I think this was a pretty good move for the coaching staff, adding him to a group of two young guys in Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop.
Yeah, I know Tennessee has position needs elsewhere, and that has been a lot of the focus. Can Tennessee find help at wide receiver? And Tennessee has landed one transfer in Amari Jefferson. How about the offensive line? Tennessee's landed one there. Could use another. What about on defense? That's been a talking point. But Dylan Sampson is gone. And Cam Selton was a player that was thought to be kind of next in line for this year in 2025, and he's gone. He went to Virginia Tech. So Peyton Lewis comes back, plenty of potential. Deshaun Bishop, he has been a quality player for Tennessee. He'll be in his third year and will have a chance to do more. But they need more. Can they count on a freshman, Morris, coming in after flipping him from USC? Maybe, but I'm skeptical that a freshman is going to play a big role. So getting a veteran that has played power conference football and succeeded in Star Thomas, I think was good for Tennessee. So adding him to the running back room, where I'm not sure there will be an obvious lead back, maybe somebody emerges, but this year they'll probably need more guys. I still think they lacked depth last year, as well as Dylan Sampson ran. I thought too much was asked of him at times. Being able to spread that out as they had done previously in 2022 and 2023, I think is better for this offense this year.
Yeah, I mean, you had Peyton Lewis that was the running back in the second half of the Ohio State game, and if he were to have gotten hurt, Tennessee'd have to go to a walk-on because you had Deshaun Bishop who was banged up, you had Dylan Sampson who was banged up, you had Khalifa Keith and Cam Selden who were in the transfer portal. And also, man, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a one-man band. I mean, 3 of the 4 years under this coaching staff, it's been a running back by committee essentially, and so that's kind of how I view it. Like maybe Peyton Lewis is your lead back, but I think all three of those guys are going to play, and then whoever's got the hot hand, you leave them in there. And I just looking at the resume, looking at the stat sheets, he started in junior college, went to New Mexico State, went to the ACC, now to the SEC. Star Thomas has produced at every single stop, and so is he going to be all SEC back next year? Probably not, but I think he's a guy that can play, and I think that this running back room got a whole lot better in terms of depth, but also just a guy that not only is a body, but is 100% going to play.
Yeah, I don't think we can stress enough the importance of having enough players available at that position. I would say that about every position. You need depth, you need more players. That's part of what we talked about here recently in the last couple of weeks. Guys transferring out affects the depth of the roster. Now, part of replacing those guys comes back to young guys who have signed, who now will have a chance to develop and play bigger roles. But there are only so many of those guys that Tennessee is going to trust. Bringing in a veteran like Star Thomas, who may not be a star in leading the offense like Dylan Sampson was, but a reliable player who has succeeded. He's played a lot. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Let's see if he gets that kind of opportunity in this offense. But having enough players available, because injuries are expected at running back over the course of the season, was a must in this offseason.
You watched the national championship the other night, and you saw Ohio State do what Ohio State's done throughout the playoffs and just make quick work of Notre Dame. As a Tennessee fan, does it make you feel any better that the eventual national championship went on and still made everybody look silly like they made you look silly? I mean, if you're a Tennessee fan, how you feeling about Ohio State?
If you choose to make yourself feel better because they whipped up on everybody else, then have at it.
It's called choosing joy, Josh, okay?
Yeah. I think it's that, or it's trying to release pain. I think is also part of it. So sure, if you want to, but part of the conversation is about getting to Ohio State's level. Ohio State showed Tennessee in Columbus what it takes. And I mean, the truth is that Ohio State and Tennessee didn't match up on the field. Ohio State was in one league and Tennessee was in another. If they played the next week, I don't know if it's 42-10 in the fourth quarter again, but it's closer to that probably than Tennessee winning the game. So Ohio State showed Tennessee what it needs to do, and that's what is next for the Vols, getting more speed, getting more elite athleticism on both sides of the football, because I think Texas is closer to that. I think Notre Dame showed, despite the disadvantage it had in the middle of the game, that it still had enough players to be able to make a run. Tennessee couldn't even make a run at Ohio State. I recognize on the road and all that stuff. So sure, if you want to use it to feel better that, hey, at least they beat up on everybody, that's fine. I would focus the energy, if I'm Tennessee staff, for sure on, okay, that's the standard. That's what we're trying to get to, like Georgia has done the last few years, what Alabama has done, what Ohio State has done here to put this roster together is what we have to do if we want to realistically go compete for those championships too.
Man, how great is the college football playoff, right? Ohio State was what, the number 7 team, and Notre Dame was what, number 6? Is that right?
Yeah, no, in terms of where they were ranked going in. Yeah.
So in years past, I mean, they would not have played for a national championship. They would have told us that Oregon and Texas, or Oregon and Georgia, or whoever were the 2 best teams. And I mean, those were 2 really good teams, don't get me wrong. But this is a perfect example of why the expanded playoffs is so great. It's teams down the rankings that won a national championship.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I guess there's a chance that if they can only take 4 as opposed to 12, they would have said, okay, we got to move some things around because we can't have Penn State up here and Ohio State back there. So they might have looked at it a little bit differently, but that's an assumption. I don't know that's the case. So I'm with you. Ohio State was the best team in the country this season. That was my preseason national title pick. They fell short in the regular season of what they were capable of being, but they proved to be that good. And then Notre Dame had the 1 loss to Northern Illinois, ugly loss, but I was really impressed during the regular season of how they responded. They had to go prove it in the playoff against high-ranked teams, and they proved themselves.
So you mentioned kind of what Tennessee needs to do to try to get on Ohio State's level, or teams like Ohio State, and it's kind of closing that gap, speed, all that type of stuff. How close are they? Because, I mean, again, like somebody asked in the Monday Night Chat, watching Ohio State tonight, what does Tennessee need to do? And I'm just like, well, talent goes a long way. Tennessee's roster is just light years better than where it was 2-3 years ago. I mean, Tennessee's doing things right. Tennessee's program is continuing to come along. Tennessee's roster is not bad. Tennessee was a college football playoff team this year. It's a good football team, good football program. But how close is that gap, I guess, between Tennessee and the Ohio States?
Well, I've thought for years and still think, despite where Ohio State was ranked going in, Ohio State's the best team in the country. Ohio State had the best roster, or it's one of the 2 or 3 best rosters with the margin very close, 1, 2, 3. There's a gap that has existed and still exists when we talk about those teams, the top 2 or 3 teams and the rest, even teams that are in the playoffs. So totally agree with you. Tennessee is in an obviously better position than where it was 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, there was no talk about, hey, how close is Tennessee to the top? It was about, what does Tennessee need to do to get into that discussion? Tennessee's in that discussion now. Now Tennessee needs to stack that level of talent. They need more high-level players, guys that NFL teams covet. If you look at draft rankings that have come out or will be coming out with the amount of Ohio State players that are in the top 50, top 100 for the NFL draft, Tennessee doesn't compare to that. Tennessee needs more of those level players. They need more James Pierce level athletes. David Sanders is one of those type players. Has to develop, has to produce something, but they need more of those players if they're going to realistically go win 3 or 4 postseason games.
James Pierce took it up to the wire, man. Any thoughts that he was going to come back before he declared for the NFL draft just like an hour before?
No, he was never coming back. It was a matter of when he would announce and
or if he was going to. I thought he was just going to not do anything, but he did put something out there.
Yeah, he could have just let his name show up on a list, which would have been fine, but he was never coming back, nor should he. He's most likely a first-round pick, and he should have gone to the draft as he did.
Yeah, he was never, ever coming back. Wishful thinking would have been great, but he was never coming back. Last thing, Josh, I kind of talked about this on yesterday's show. I know it's incomplete because, again, 2 teams that played for a national championship on Monday night, their 5-day windows are now open. If anybody wants to get into the transfer portal, there are still other players in the transfer portal out there. I understand semesters are starting and drop add dates are coming up and all that, but it is incomplete. At the end of this week, let's revisit that. What would your grade be for Tennessee football the offseason to this point? My grade was a C+. Certainly not disastrous like a lot of people want to believe, but there's a lot more there left to be desired. So I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think it's a C+.
Yeah, that's
right now that could change.
Yeah, that's probably okay considering there's more work to be done, and I know that they're working on that. So I'd probably be in the C+ range. I can't go above that, knowing the needs that they have, knowing how they missed on some key players, and I understand the reasons, missing on Thompson, the lineman, to LSU, and then Pregnon, who went to Oregon. But there's no reward in being in the top 2 or 3 for these players. You need to go land them. So that is the focus, finding more help at wide receiver if possible, on the offensive and defensive lines if possible. It's not Tennessee's fault that Jermon McCoy suffered the injury that he did, but maybe finding help in the defensive backfield is something they're thinking of right now. So I'd go C+ for Tennessee.
Yep, sounds about right. Josh, what do you and VFL Jason Swain got coming up the rest of the week on the show?
Yeah, a lot of off-season talk. Hopefully I don't get choked up as much on the show as I have talking to you here today. But looking ahead to the rest of the off-season for Tennessee football and hoops, we had Ron Slay on Tuesday in the 1 o'clock hours we do each week with the Slay Ride. So check that out. And then the newsletter comes out Friday morning, free into your email inbox each week.
And, of course, you can sign up for that newsletter in the show notes of this episode. Josh, as always, man, thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks, Eric.
Great conversation, as always, with Josh Ward. Ward Wednesday. Do it every single Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Great conversation with Mike Wilson of Knox News, getting you set for Tennessee baseball coming up, the reigning national champions. And a great conversation with, I guess, myself, or with you, rather, reacting to Tennessee basketball's win over Mississippi State on Tuesday night action, 68-56. Tennessee jumped out to an 8-0 lead, never looked back in the first half, withstood, again, that quick rally there to begin the second half. But it was Chaz Lanier, 23 points, 10 points from Jahmai Mashack, 10 points from Gainey, and 9 points from Okpara, 12 rebounds as well. Tennessee basketball, a pretty easy day at the office Tuesday night, getting set for a monster showdown with Auburn coming up this weekend. Hey, we'll get you set for that matchup and more, the latest in what's going on with Tennessee football and everything else tomorrow right here on Locked On Vols. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.